Hello. Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Today, we're having a conversation with someone who helps a lot of lawyers. He's addressed things like imposter syndrome and productivity and I can go on for a long, long time. He's also a contributor to this book, The Legal Operations in the Age of AI and Data. He talks about KPIs and important things. And it's a great opportunity for you to ask him questions and to get tips. Without further ado, Gary, welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. I'm so excited to finally have this conversation. I've seen you roaming through the hallways of LinkedIn many, many times, and it's a privilege to have this conversation with you. For folks who haven't met you, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Olga. I'm Gary Miles. Like you say, very, very active on LinkedIn. Been practicing law for 45 years, but what I do now is I write, I have my own podcast, but my main focus is coaching and mentoring lawyers and helping them find a way to be happy, successful, and free in a very challenging profession.
I love the promise and the sound of that. That sounds fantastic. And 45 years practicing law, that's no small achievement. Just curious, maybe we do not need to go year by year. That would take us a long time. But for folks to situate in your experiences, what did you do in those 45 years and how much did you love it?
I did love it. I had the pleasure of clerking for a year in federal court. I wanted to be a trial lawyer, so I joined a small boutique defense litigation firm where I started in July of '82, and I'm still counsel to that firm today. So it's quite rare to be in the same place all that time. I spent 30 years doing mostly civil defense litigation, but I reinvented myself 15 years ago and became a family law attorney, doing custody cases and divorce and other related issues and that was in Maryland, where I owned and managed my own firm until I moved to North Carolina and semi-retired from the firm and started helping and serving other lawyers.
So what happened? How does one get up in the morning after doing trial work and family law work, which is, an incredible journey? How do you get up in the morning and decide that from now forward, I will be focusing lawyers to be good and enjoy what they do?
I spent 45 years in contest, in conflict, trying to win, trying to get what my client wanted. And there was always some measure of conflict there. And I realized the profession's gotten so much harder. I mean, I can't even tell you in how many ways. I mean, when I started, there weren't even computers. We used something called a typewriter. Some people may have heard of it. And we lawyers, we often work together well, but sometimes we struggled. And I realized when I stepped down from that active role, I wouldn't help lawyers. I was tired of arguing with them and fighting with them. I wanted to wrap my arms around them and help them find the success and the joy that they deserve.
That sounds like you reached an enlightenment state. Why fight when we can have peace? I love that. So I'm looking at your chapters. You talk about the KPIs on page 129. Tell us more. How did you get involved? Why did you get involved? And what is the focus of your chapter?
My background has mostly been with smaller law firms as a practicing attorney. Now I coach both in-house and lawyers in law firms. But a lot of law firms, not big law, but a lot of other law firms just work and don't know how to run their business. And they don't even know what a KPI is, a key performance indicator. They don't know what data to measure and track. And I want to give them some guidance about how to run their firm as a business more successfully, knowing what to focus on and what's important.
Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. It's authors like this, then leaders like you, that made the experience of writing this important book at this very important point in time when AI is blowing up, a very important contribution. I do want to talk about important things like imposter syndrome. I've seen some of your posts. You talk about it quite a lot. Share kind of, why do you think we have it, and what do we do about it, especially when you are in-house, for example?
Yeah, but before I get that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to work with you in that amazing book. You were a leader, you took charge, and I really appreciate that. Imposter syndrome, it's funny how it affects so many lawyers, both in-house and in law firms. And for whatever reason, no matter our successes, our talents, we often think we're not good enough. Everyone around us sees ourselves as competent and successful. And I know for me, I began to say, am I really who people see me as? And the truth is that I am. And folks in-house are the same. But often it comes down to the competition we had in law school, our struggle to be perfect, comparing ourselves to others. All those things can make us think we're not good enough, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are ways to overcome that self-doubt.
So practically speaking, whether it's learned or we're born with it or we develop because of the field, at some point we need to learn how to manage ourselves, because we have no chance of managing anything else unless we figure out how to manage ourselves. What is sort of your number one tool in managing that self-doubt and self-sabotage?
There are several, but the number one tool is to know that self-doubt is a feeling, but it's not a fact. And I encourage people to be self-aware and then to look at the facts, look at what they've done, look at their experience, look at their successes, look at their last evaluation, look at how the general counsel praised them for their work, and focus on those facts and what other people say about them, because that's the truth. That's the reality. The feeling is I'm not good enough, but that's not the truth.
Yeah, separating thought and feelings and facts is very important. And you would think we're good at it because we learn to separate laws and facts in law school. So it's somewhat of a related exercise. Let's talk about productivity, because productivity is another thing. It's very important in the practice of law, independent of where you may be, whether it's at a law firm, government, in-house, nonprofit. Productivity is something that comes up all the time, especially because we have so many increasingly productivity tools that may or may not be making us productive, because they're also putting a lot of pressure and learning that is required to go with it. How do you approach productivity, and what is your sort of number one tool when it comes to productivity?
The trouble with productivity is all of us, particularly in-house, get demands from different people, different departments, different managers want things and they want them now. And we can feel overwhelmed and stressed if we're not productive. And the most important thing is to plan and prioritize. What things you have to do? What is most important and most time sensitive? And put that first. And then for tomorrow, before you leave today, plan your day out. What are you going to do from 8:30 to 9:30? What are you going to do from 9:30 to 10:30? And I find I let myself get interrupted by so many things, emails, phone calls. And if you can, block out that time and work exclusively on that project. Return your calls, answer emails after you're finished that hour working on that project. And you'll find you're much, much more effective.
What about the unstructured time? Do you schedule that?
The unstructured time?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I encourage people to schedule their projects, schedule them for a limited period of time. If it's a 5-hour project, don't plan on working 5 hours. Work on an hour today and an hour the next day. But save the calls and emails for when you're finished. So work on them from 10 to 11. Maybe it'll take longer, maybe it won't. But if you do them all at once, it's much quicker. And talk about unstructured time, it really is important to schedule a break in the morning, a break in the afternoon, just 10 minutes, go out and get some fresh air, take a lunch and don't work through it, because we get burned out if we just try to work so hard all day without taking those breaks. In a sport, whatever sport is, the coach calls a timeout. He wants the players to take a break. We need to take a break as well.
Yeah, breaks are important. It's interesting when you said, do not answer calls. And I find, I actually never answer calls. I think if you have an emergency, you have 911, I will answer when I'm ready to answer. But I do find that folks expect their lawyers to pick up phones, and it takes a little bit of time to train them what to expect. I'm curious, it's easy to sort of have various rules, but training folks around you actually takes an effort. How do you go about training folks that you may call and I probably won't answer? It's an opportunity for you to leave a message or email me, and I will respond to you when I have time.
Well, I think the key is to let the parties who reach out to you, your clients or the parties you serve, let them know you have a lot of balls in the air, a lot of plates that are spinning, and I'll get back to you in the same day and probably within 2 hours. But sometimes I'm tied up on another matter. And drop me an email or you can call me, leave a message. I promise you I'll get right back to you. And there really is no one, if we're responsible about that, and I call that person back within an hour or two or the same morning, they're never unhappy. They're pleased to get the call back. But the interrupting me while I'm working really makes me very, very unproductive.
Okay, let's talk about fear, because sometimes kind of having boundaries, teaching folks how to interact and what to expect requires courage. And in our decision making, I find that when I talk to folks who practice law, they are focused on risk, and sometimes that translates to fear, and sometimes that translates to fear of making good decisions, and sometimes it may translate to fear of making a decision, period. So, fear, how do you deal with that?
Fear can be paralyzing, and mostly it comes from thinking about the future and doing what I call awfulizing a bad result. We have to plan, we have to strategize, we have to schedule our matters. But if we get stuck in the future, worrying about what might happen or what could happen, we're wasting our emotional energy. Just plan for what we have to do and then stay present, get into action. Whatever we have to work on, get working on and getting it done. But don't let your mind drift off to the future and what could happen or what might happen, because that just causes stress and makes us very frustrated, not successful, unhappy.
You use the term awfulizing.
Yes.
Let's talk about that term. When I lead my legal teams, I've been a general counsel a few times and led divisions as well. I noticed that folks on my team sometimes kind of plan for disasters. Every conversation about what could possibly go wrong and how do I get prepared for that. And sometimes I pause and ask, why don't we plan for good things? Because good things happen to good people too, sometimes even more often than bad things. So I'm curious, when you say awfulizing, what do you mean by that? And then practically speaking, how do you sort of anchor yourself? What is your strategy of anchoring yourself in a now? Kind of when I discuss, let's plan for good things in our life. How do you do this? What is the mechanism that you help your clients to stop awfulizing and shift that energy to now and perhaps even more uplifting thoughts?
Yeah, well, there really are two. And I know for me, when I would get in the future, I would just imagine the worst possible result. I was a trial lawyer and I would spend so much time worrying about the terrible verdict. And that just does me no good. So there really are two things I try to do. The one is to try to create a vision of success instead of a vision of failure. And that helps me. So I'm an avid golfer. And I find if I visualize the shot going over the lake and onto the green, I do a whole lot better instead of worrying about going in the lake. But the other is to just get in the present. When I find my mind drifting into the future, get into the now, get into action, get doing whatever it is I need to do, and just choose not to think so much about the future. Choose to think about getting my project done, whatever that might mean.
Yeah, visualizing success is helpful. My daughter is an avid golfer, and she shares that helps her as well. In fact, she tells me that's the difference between her good days and bad days, especially on the golf field, which is, I think, a big chunk of it is the mental state. Really,
It
it's a
is.
mental. It's a difficult game, and it's mostly about the mental state. From what I understand, I am just a groupie who carries things and supports her. So
Great.
there's a role for me. So let's talk about resilience, because part of what kind of being in the now and visualizing success and stop awfulizing. I love that word. We make up words, Gary. It's a good
Yes, we
day.
do. I've lived it though.
Yes. Let's talk about resilience, because I think that is a good transition for us to talk about resilience. What let's define it, what it means in the context of lawyers, and kind of what are the practices that you think are helpful for us to stay resilient.
Yeah, resilience is really important as a lawyer because we encounter some setbacks. We have so many things that don't work out how we might. Project might not go as smoothly. Our boss may not be happy with our work. Things can happen. But I always look at those setbacks as being opportunities for success. When I do everything right and everything works out perfectly, I don't really learn anything from that. But when I make a mistake or I fail at something, I've learned something I can do better next time. So I think one of the real key thoughts is to understand that we're not perfect. And we may have a setback. We may not be successful in an endeavor. But look at what can we learn from that? What can we take away from that? And if we have a boss or mentor or manager who gives us constructive guidance, don't go into I'm a failure and I'm no good, but how can I be better? How can I improve myself? Because we can always learn and we can always improve.
You have a podcast,
I do.
The Free Lawyer.
Free
Tell
lawyer.
them. I want to talk about the Free Lawyer. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? How did you get to that name?
Well, I've found that I've often been trapped in my own thoughts and in my own negativity, being controlled by other people, by other circumstances, by other lawyers, by other partners. And I realize there are things in life I have to accept. Circumstances, people are who they are. I can't change them. But what we have power over is all the things we've talked about today. Resilience, being present, thinking positive thoughts. That's what creates freedom. If no one else has any power over me and whether I have a good day or bad day, then I'm free. And that's my goal today.
How do you know you have it? How do you know when you're free?
Well, you never fully have it. It's a process. And I find if I let myself get frustrated by other people and circumstances, then I'm not doing well. Those things will happen. People are not going to be exactly who I want them to be in my life ever, not professionally, not personally. But my job is to enjoy my life. And I can choose to be as positive, as happy as I want to be today. And I can choose my own thoughts. I can choose my thoughts of success and confidence and optimism. Or I can think about, I'm not good enough and I wish I was perfect, but I'm not. All those negative thoughts where we take ourselves so often.
We can talk for a long time. We are coming to the end. I do want to talk about things like, really easy things. Success. Success is entirely self-defined. Something that is success, according to Olga, may be a definition of mediocre life to somebody else, or yet even something worse than mediocre life. So I'm curious, I'm sure with your clients, you have conversations around success. How do you approach them? What is the tools and mechanisms that you help them to wrap their mind around this thing called success, which is entirely self-defined?
You hit the nail on the head. It's self-defined. And so often we let others define what success is for us, whether it's getting the general counsel job at that certain company. And that's what people think success is for us. That's the pinnacle. But we get there, it's not really what we want. We don't want to live there. We don't want to work in that kind of environment. whatever it is, that may not be us. So to me, success begins with identifying what's important to us. Is it money? Is it prestige? Is it a title? Is it time with our family? Is it doing the kind of work we want, or doing it with the kind of people we want to do it with? We can't have everything, but what is most important to us? And then choose our next step to try to create that success we want, whatever that might look like. And it's not necessarily money, a title, and prestige. It may be, but not necessarily.
And it may be changing. It may be because who you are to, Olga when she graduated from law school was a very different Olga when she decided to marry and have kids. Olga is very different when she was a general counsel, and then when she became a CEO. Olga is a moving target. I think that's an important piece, is that self-check periodically, right?
Absolutely. I think we always need to look at ourselves, see what's changed, and we'll know if we're not happy. We'll know if we feel stuck, if we're frustrated. And I guess my message to everyone is, you're never stuck. And sometimes my in-house clients, that's one of the things that concerns them is, how do I move up? I'm assistant general counsel. I'm 35. My general counsel is 42, and he or she's fantastic and she loves the company. So how do I move up?
And she's not planning to die.
In law firms, it's a little bit different. It's very competitive, but you can create your own success. In an in-house position, it can be difficult. And so just think about what's important to you, what your values are, whether it's security or location or who you work with or the kind of industry. Think about what's important to you, and it may well change over time.
Your advice to visualize success resonated. Thank you, Jeff, for commenting and sharing your thoughts on this. I do want to pursue the conversation around in-house, the dilemma you just mentioned. You have a fantastic manager and you want their job and you wish them well. you hope them to be around. How do you deal with that? Because the drive to be upward rising sometimes is strong. Folks who end up going to law schools, succeeding in law, usually are upward rising and very much focused on that. How do you manage that, and how do you lawyer yourself out of that situation?
Well, I think that is one of the challenges in-house. Is there only a limited number of positions for in-house lawyers? And it could well be that the person above you is quite successful and likely to be there a long time. And I think that person just needs to evaluate, how can I contribute the most to this company, this organization? How can I improve myself the best? And what do I want to be? Am I happy being here? Am I compensated well? Do I like what I'm doing? Do I like partnering with my GC and working with him or her? Or do I want that position myself? And that's something to reflect on. And if so, perhaps that means relocating to a different business, whatever it might be.
I'm curious because I counsel a lot of in-house lawyers who are seeking their first general counsel role. In your experience, what is the timeline and what does it take to pivot to your first general counsel role?
I think it takes flexibility, teamwork, effort, but I think that the folks who really contribute to their company in a positive way, not in a competitive way, not in a backstabbing way, but how can I best serve my GC? And often he or she will understand you're groomed for that position somewhere else, and maybe even be supportive of your moving there. So I think it comes to being a team-oriented person who's very conscious of the goals and values of the company and trying to achieve them, and seeing what does a general counsel do and what can I learn from him or her to be the best I can be in my position.
All right, we are coming to the end, but I do have a few questions, and I do want to talk about the small thing called mentorship. And there's a lot of thoughts about it. Folks share best practices and what to do, what not to do. I'm just curious, what are the misconceptions and what is your top tip when it comes to being a mentor or receiving mentoring?
Well, for me as a mentor, my goal is to be as empathetic understanding, and a really good listener that I can. What the mentees get is so important. They get someone to talk to who will really listen to them objectively and fairly, and who will support them when they're struggling with self-doubt. It's funny, I can see in my clients a vision of their success that they cannot often see in themselves because they're limited by their past and what's happened in their past and where they are. And to have someone to help them set their vision, their goals for success, and then come up with a plan to achieve it with some measure of nice, friendly accountability. Hey, you said at this meeting you're going to do A, B, and C. We're not there yet. What can we do to get there? So the combination of a listening ear, guidance, vision setting, and accountability are huge benefits. And when I grew up as a lawyer, I didn't have that. It's now something that really is readily available.
Gary, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for contributing to the book. I thoroughly enjoyed our in-person conversation now on LinkedIn. I'm not just watching you walking around the hallways. It's actually fantastic to say hello and have a conversation with you. We covered a lot of ground. What is one takeaway or action item you have for the audience?
Well, first off, let me say thank you for having me. And boy, I love working with you on the book. You're simply amazing. My one takeaway is actually three, but I'll call them one. These are the three traits you need to be happy and successful. The first is gratitude. We have a lot of things we don't like in our life, but focus on what you do like. Focus on the gifts you have, the people in your life, the people in your family, the people you work with. Celebrate your wins and be grateful for them. The other is acceptance. There are things in our life we can't change, people we can't change. They are what they are. We have to accept them. Don't let them frustrate you, get you mad. If you don't like where you are, then you can change. If you don't like who you work with, you can work somewhere else. And the other is being mindful and present, like we talked about before. Live in the moment, live in today. That's where you create your future. And try to stay out of the future and the past. They just create worry and resentment and regret. So gratitude, acceptance, and mindfulness, practice those skills. They really will help.
I love it. Gratitude, acceptance, and mindfulness. Gary, thank you so much. And thank you for your generous words. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights and 40 plus year career and helping lawyers to be amazing every day. Thank you everyone for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.